The SaHabah, the companions. The status of being a companion is called suhbah, companionship. So that's basically is the attribute of the Sahabi. The one who's described as a Sahabi has an attribute called suhbah, companionship. Those companions of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they're called SaHabah. And they're called the ashab, but other than the Prophet's companions, what I learned, other than the Prophet's companions are not called SaHabah. Like you don't say, those are my SaHabah. Rather you say, the SaHabah are the companions of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And these are my ashab, my companions, my friends. The Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, "Usikum bi ashabi." I command you with my companions. Thumma alladhina yalunahum, thumma alladhina yalunahum. Then those who come after them, then those who come after them. So that is, this is a command to follow the companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the tabi'un, the successors of the companions, and atba'u tabi'in, the followers of the successors. Those are the generations of the Salaf, and the companions are at the head of the Salaf. The famous definition is that the companions are those who met or encountered the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam during his life in an ordinary way while believing in him, whether or not for a short or extended time, and died as believers even if apostasy came in between. Those who met or encountered the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Footnote: some say the one who saw the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. When they want to define companion, they would say a companion is someone who saw the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They meant in the instance when there was nothing to prevent them from seeing the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Or else those who accompanied him without seeing him because of something that prevented their vision, like the blind man Ibn Maktoum, were considered companions without any difference in opinion. Yani, in other words, to define a companion as someone who saw the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is not the best way to word it. So that's why we have it here, those who met him or encountered him. Because some of his companions were blind, so they didn't see him. This is why it is better to say they are the people who met the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Is it meant by this qualification, this qualifier, this restriction, that the person who met the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam after receiving the revelation, that the person met the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam after receiving the revelation? Or is it what is more general than that? Yani, what if he met the Prophet before he became a prophet? Is that included? This is in consideration of those who met him and died before the revelation, but died as monotheists, like Zayd ibn Amr ibn Nufail. This one, Zayd ibn Amr ibn Nufail, he was a monotheist without meeting the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but he died before the Prophet received the revelation and he did not get the chance to embrace Islam. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said about him, "Innahu yub'athu yawm al-qiyamati ummatan wahdah." He will certainly be resurrected as a one-man nation. Yani, a nation alone. Ibn Manda judged him as a companion. So that's what some of them said. Well, we don't say that. And what is the case of the one who met him before prophethood, lived away from him, and then embraced Islam and died without re-meeting him again? Al-Iraqi said, what proves that what is meant is the one who saw him after his prophethood is that the scholars documented the status of companionship for those who were born to the Prophet after prophethood, like Ibrahim and Abdullah, and they did not do that for whoever was born and died before prophethood, like Al-Qasim. They didn't count Al-Qasim as a companion of the Prophet because he died before the Prophet received the revelation. And they did count Ibrahim and Abdullah as companions because they encountered the Prophet after he received the revelation. Also, is it a condition that the one who met him have mental discrimination and sanity, which would exclude the children who met him before mental discrimination and anyone who met him while insane? Meaning, what if someone encountered the Prophet while 4 years old, 3 years old, 5 years old, and did not yet have mental discerning? Is this one a companion? Or someone who met him while insane? Is this one a companion, or is it more general than that? Al-Ala'i, the Sheikh of Al-Iraqi, does not confirm the status of companionship for Abdullah ibn al-Harith ibn Nawfal, nor Abdullah ibn Abi Talha, although the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam did the hanak for both of them and made supplication for them. The hanak is when the baby is first born and you chew up a date and make it pulpy, and then you rub the roof of the baby's mouth with the sweetness of this pulp. So there's some details here about whether such people are companions or not. It's obvious for you that if you're just teaching someone, you don't have to go into all these details. But, Yani, we're learning this here. I've learned it and I want to share it with you, so that's why it's here. So a companion, the companions are those who met or encountered the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam during his life. Footnote: if someone saw the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam after his death, whether before or after his burial, then what is widely accepted is that he is not a companion. If this were his case, but he lived during the Prophet's time, then there is difference in opinion that shall be mentioned later, God willing. If he was born after the Prophet's death, then there is no difference in opinion that he is not a companion. This is why we say during his lifetime, because it happened that when the Prophet passed away, alayhi salatu wassalam, there were still people en route coming, trying to meet him. They didn't know he was even dying. Because, Yani, amongst what was the case of the Muslims at the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is that there were people who embraced Islam away from the Prophet during his lifetime. So were they companions? Not without meeting him, not without encountering him. So if they became Muslims because of following the companions, then they are tabi'un. They would be from the class of Muslims called at-tabi'un, even if they were alive during the Prophet's life. Like SaHabah and Najashi, the king of Abyssinia. He never got to meet the Prophet, though he was alive during the Prophet's time. So then he's a tabi'i. And so there were tabi'un during the life of the Prophet, in other words. There were tabi'un during the life of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And the case of some of those tabi'un was that they wanted to meet the Prophet. So some of them they couldn't get to him. And some of them they would get to him. Finally, they get the chance to meet him. And so some of them, they got to him just after he died. They just missed him, alayhi salatu wassalam. And so the saying that we take is that they missed it. They did not become companions by getting to the Prophet after he died, even before he was buried, alayhi salatu wassalam. So the companions are those who met the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam during his life in an ordinary way. In an ordinary way excludes Angel Jibreel from being a companion of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because encountering an angel is not ordinary. And it also excludes the prophets who met Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam on the night of Al-Isra wal Mi'raj, and he prayed with them as their imam, because his meeting them was not ordinary. So the companions met the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam during his life in an ordinary way. They met him in an ordinary way. Yani, yes, while believing in him. Footnote: whoever met the Prophet as a blasphemer sallallahu alaihi wasallam and then embraced Islam after the death of the Prophet is not a companion, according to what is widely accepted, like the messenger of Qaisar. But Ahmed counted him as a companion in Al-Musnad. Whether or not for a short or extended time, this one encountered the Prophet for a short or extended time. Footnote: some consider someone a companion with the condition that he had an extended companionship with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, sat with him a lot and learned from him consistently. So that's the conditions of some scholars for someone to be a companion. As-Sim'ani conveys that from the scholars of the basics or the fundamentals, the usul. He said that the name Sahabi applies to what has been described linguistically and what is understood normally. He said that the scholars of hadith apply companionship to anyone who narrated from him a hadith or a word, and that they extend the scope of being a companion to the point that they counted anyone who merely saw him as a companion. We take that saying. Anyone who was a believer and even saw Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or he saw that one as a believer, then that one is a companion of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wa ala alihi wasallam. And they died as believers even if apostasy came in between. Footnote: some of those who accompanied the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam apostatized but returned to Islam. This is why we say even if apostasy came in between the establishment of their companionship and their death, between their being confirmed as companions and between their death, there was apostasy. If this one came back to Islam, he's still a companion. This excludes those who apostatized and died as blasphemers. They are not counted among the companions, like Ibn Khatal and Rabi'ah ibn Umayyah. They don't have to be Muslims when they first encountered the Prophet to be a companion, but they need to be Muslims before they leave him. And also one named Miqyas ibn SaHabah and the like. They committed apostasy and died without coming back to Islam. So they are not companions. Al-Iraqi said, there is a big question about including the one who met the Prophet as a believer, then apostatized and returned after the death of the Prophet, being among the companions. This is because apostasy erases the good deeds. Yani, the reason for this big question is that apostasy erases the good deeds, according to Abu Hanifa. And Ash-Shafi'i documented that in even if Ar-Rafi'i said that they are erased with the condition that one dies on that state. So what seems to be the case is that apostasy erases the previous status of companionship, like the case of Qurrah ibn Hubayrah and Al-Ash'af ibn Qais. However, there is nothing to prevent including whoever returned to Islam during his lifetime, like Abdullah ibn Abi Sarh, to be among the companions by his second entrance into Islam, and Allah knows best. So what we say is, even if he came back to Islam after the Prophet died, he is a companion. Al-Iraqi saying, if he came back to Islam before the Prophet died, he is for sure a companion. Yeah, that's true. And is he a companion if he came back to Islam after the Prophet died? That's disputable, and we say, yes, he is. This is the famous definition. Imam Ahmad said, whoever accompanied him for a year, a month, a day, or a sa'ah, or merely saw him, is one of his companions. Sa'ah could mean hour, moment, or any ambiguous amount of time. Al-Bukhari said in his Sahih, وَمَنْ صَحِبَ النَّبِيَّ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ أَوْ رَآهُ مِنَ الْمُسْلِمِينَ فَهُوَ مِنْ أَصْحَابِهِ. Any Muslim who accompanied the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam or saw him is one of his companions, or if he saw that one. Following them is because they are the masters who conveyed the religion to the generation after them. If not for the companions, Islam would not have reached us. It is they who conveyed the words of the Quran to us from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and they who witnessed the descent of the revelation on the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and they who are most knowledgeable about the meanings of the Quran and hadiths of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So they are the most qualified to interpret them. That's broad general statement. There are for sure successors of the companions more knowledgeable than some of the companions. And some scholars who would appear from time to time who would be more knowledgeable than some companions. Abu al-Muzaffar said, the Rawafid are worse than the Jews and Christians, those the Shiites. For if the Jews were asked, who are the masters of your religion? They would say, the companions of Musa. If the Christians were asked, who are the masters of your religion? They would say, the disciples who were with Jesus. If the Rawafid were asked, who are the worst of the nation of Muhammad? They would say, the companions of Muhammad. So they're worse than the Jews and the Christians in this way, not in every way. It is an obligation to love the companions, especially the original Muhajirun, the immigrants, and the first Ansar, the supporters from Medina. The Muhajirun were the people of Mecca, and the Ansar were the people of Al-Madinah, because they are the people who supported the religion of Allah. They are especially the ones who supported the religion of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. Al-Tahawi said, Rahimahullah, وَحُبُّهُمْ دِينٌ وَإِيمَانٌ وَإِحْسَانٌ Loving them is religion and faith and perfection in worship. And the Shaykh said under the sins of the heart, وَبُغْضُ الصَّحَابَةِ وَالْآلِ وَالصَّالِحِينَ. Hating the companions, the al of the Prophet, which is his family, and the righteous Muslims. That's sin of the heart. Hating them all is blasphemous denial of Allah's praise of them. Hating all companions is blasphemy because it is a denial of Allah's praise of the companions. When he said, وَالسَّابِقُونَ الْأَوَّلُونَ مِنَ الْمُهَاجِرِينَ وَالْأَنصَارِ. Allah praises the original immigrants and supporters, the original immigrants and supporters. وَالَّذِينَ اتَّبَعُوهُمْ بِإِحْسَانٍ, and everyone who follows them in goodness. And also other verses of the Quran that praise the companions. So if someone hates all of the companions, this is blasphemy because that hatred would be a denial of God's praise of them. At-Tahawi said, وَبُغْضُهُمْ كُفْرٌ وَنِفَاقٌ وَطُغْيَانٌ. Hating them is blasphemy, hypocrisy, and injustice. This means hating them all. That's where the blasphemy is going to be. It's not going to be blasphemy to hate a companion. It's going to be blasphemy to hate all companions because that's going to be a direct attack on the religion. The Shaykh also said under the sins of the tongue, وَمِنْهَا سَبُّ الصَّحَابَةِ. Among the sins of the tongue is insulting the companions. Whoever insults them in totality blasphemes. Whoever said that there is no goodness in them blasphemes. Whoever said that they are unreliable in their conveyance of the sacred law blasphemes. For we would not have known the Quran, the religious law, or any matters of the religion but through their conveyance. Since we did not meet the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Al-Tahawi said, وَنُبْغِضُ مَنْ يُبْغِضُهُمْ وَبِغَيْرِ الْخَيْرِ يَذْكُرُهُمْ. We hate whoever hates them or in anything other than goodness mentions them. Yani, we hate whoever hates the companions, and we hate whoever speaks about them in other than goodness, with other than goodness. Footnote. Among the deviant factions is the Rawafid, the deserters. They are also called the Rafidah and the Shiites. They have divided into factions. Some of those factions have reached blasphemy and some of them have not. Some of them have judged all of the companions as blasphemers, which is itself blasphemy, for not paying allegiance to Imam Ali. They said those companions are kuffar for not paying allegiance to Ali, claiming that they rejected the explicit statements of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam about the rulership of Ali after him, which is not true. Meaning, the Shiites, they have conviction that Ali ibn Abi Talib should have been the first caliph, not Abu Bakr. So since Abu Bakr really was the first caliph and not Ali, then they say, and since that was a case of companions, a case of consensus among the companions, no companions said, no, not Abu Bakr. They all agreed, and in fact, even Ali agreed to it. So what did the Shiites say? They said, those who did not pay allegiance to Ali committed kufr because they denied the explicit statements of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam about Imam Ali's rulership. So where is this hadith according to those Shiites? There's no hadith like that. And why would they think that the companions would obey Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam as much as they did all his life? For over 20 years, obeying Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in anything he told them regarding their money, regarding their lives. They obeyed Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And then after he died, all of a sudden they all flipped and decided to engage in mass conspiracy and to agree to Abu Bakr being the ruler and disregard all of them, disregard the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam about Ali. So that's very far-fetched. And in fact, Ali himself, he agreed. He agreed to the rulership of Abu Bakr. Yes. Abu Bakr was the best of humans after the prophets. That means he is the highest saint, the highest wali of all the awliya. And these Shiites of which we speak are the Jarudiyah, the followers of Abu Jarud. The Kamiliyah also deem all of the companions as blasphemers, and they said that Ali was a blasphemer for not fighting them. They are the followers of Abu Kamil. And some of the Jarudiyah have deemed Abu Bakr and Umar as blasphemers, as well as those who paid allegiance to them. So that's everyone. To deem Abu Bakr and Umar as a kafir, and whoever agreed or paid allegiance to them, that's everyone, because nobody didn't pay allegiance to them. So that means they make takfir on all the companions. The Nawusiyah, who are Rafidah, who claim to follow Ja'far as-Sadiq, agree with them. The Sulaymaniyah have deemed Uthman as a blasphemer, and they are the followers of Sulayman ibn Jarir. They are also called Al-Jaririyah. Sulaymaniyah are also called Al-Jaririyah. And as for the factions of the Khawarij, they have all agreed on deeming Uthman and Ali and the people of the Battle of Al-Jamal and the mediators between Ali and Muawiyah, and whoever accepted those mediators, as blasphemers. So the Khawarij, they have all agreed on deeming Uthman a kafir, and Ali as a kafir, and the people of the Battle of Al-Jamal as kafirs, and the mediators between Ali and Muawiyah as kafirs. And whoever accepted their mediating, they deem all of them as kuffar. What's the story of the Khawarij, by the way? When did they first come out? When Ali and Muawiyah wanted to do a mediation, because there was a civil war between the Muslims. And the original Khawarij were part of Ali's army. When Ali agreed to do a mediation, because these people wanted to fight actually and kill, they broke away from Ali's army. And they deemed Ali as a kafir and Muawiyah as a kafir and whoever else they felt like. And they killed many Muslims. The synopsis is that insulting the companions in general is blasphemy. As for insulting an individual among them, if he were pious, because the companions are of different ranks, they're not all pious, then this insult is a major sin. Some of the companions are the devotedly pious, the barara, good. And some of them are the akhyar, the superior, the akhyar, yani the choicest, the cream of the crop. And of those, some of them are of those who are in close, or those of close status, muqarrabun. And some of the companions are less than that, lower than that. Let's say lower, are lower than that in status.
I have a question.
Yes.
I read in a book that it's blasphemy to insult any of the 10 on.
To insult, that's not what Sheikh says. We're going to mention the 10, inshallah. Because the Sheikh says that insulting Abu Bakr is a major sin, and Abu Bakr is one of the 10. So it's not accurate to say insulting one of the 10 is blasphemy. This verse that I'm going to recite now is about the awliya amongst the companions. والسابقون الأولون من المهاجرين والأنصار. The earliest and best believers among the immigrants and the Ansar, meaning Allah praises them. وَسُبْحَانَ اللَّهِ وَبِحَمْدِهِ.